Hello and welcome back to Murdock. In this video we're going to discuss the plot and ending of Spider-Man No Way Home. There will be major spoilers for No Way Home, so if you've not seen this movie, this is your warning. If you're trying to avoid spoilers, you can check out our Spider-Man No Way Home spoiler-free review linked below. And don't forget, we post daily Marvel news and rumors on our Instagram account. This video will only cover the plot and ending of Spider-Man No Way Home. If you're just looking for the ending, you can use the chapter timestamps to skip ahead to that part of the video. If you're looking for information on the two post-credit scenes, we've made another video detailing both of them, which you can also find linked below. We can't show you any footage from the movie other than what was in trailers, because the video will get flagged by Sony, but we'll do our best to explain the plot and the ending. If you have any questions, comment below, and we'll try to answer them to the best of our ability. No Way Home opens exactly where the post-credit scene from Far From Home left off. It starts with just audio, while the Marvel Studios logo appears, without the fanfare. J. Jonah Jameson's broadcast is blaring, which then showcases the footage Mysterio doctored. MJ starts getting mobbed, so Spider-Man swings down to save her, as they traverse the skies, and eventually drop down into the subway to avoid the news shoppers and mobs of people. During all of this, there are people who are on Peter's side, and people who coined the slogan, Mysterio was right. Peter's suit gets stained with green paint from one of the Mysterio was right people. Eventually they end up at Aunt May's place, where she's just broken up with Happy. As Peter tries to shut all of the window shades to avoid attention from the media outside, they quickly realize they'll need a lawyer. Enter Matt Murdock, looking almost identical to his look in the Netflix Daredevil series, complete with red-tinted glasses. Matt tells them that Peter should be fine and the charges won't stick. This is the only scene Matt Murdock is in, but toward the end of the scene a brick comes flying through the window behind him, which Matt blindly catches before it can hit Peter. When questioned about how he was able to catch it, he jokes that he's a good lawyer. Everyone quickly realizes they need a safer place to stay, so they temporarily move to Happy's condo, which has a high-end Stark security system. Peter resumes his normal life, going back to school, where he's treated like a celebrity. Peter, Ned, and MJ are all trying to get into the same college, with their big hope being MIT. As one denial after another comes in, all three realize that they can't get into any of these schools because of the negative controversy surrounding Spider-Man. It's at this point that Peter thinks to go visit Doctor Strange at the Sanctum, which is snowed in because no one properly sealed a portal to Siberia. First, Peter asks Strange to go back in time to stop everyone from finding out his identity, to which Strange confirms that he no longer has the Time Stone, and that Wong is now Sorcerer Supreme since Strange was gone for 5 years thanks to the blip. Wong says something that reminds Strange of the runes of Kuf'Kal, which he can use to erase everyone's memory. We then see Peter and Strange in the scene from the trailer, with Strange trying to cast a spell. Peter interferes because he doesn't want MJ, Ned, Aunt May, and his other close associates to forget about him. This causes the spell to go haywire, but Strange contains it in a prism and all seems fine. Strange reminds Peter that he can ask MIT to reconsider his friends, which prompts Peter to call Flash Thompson, who got into MIT and is currently at a freshman mixer. Flash tells him the main admissions person has just left and is heading to the airport. Peter catches up with her on the bridge, but Doc Ock attacks. During this fight, Doc Ock has Peter pinned up against a pillar and tears off the nanomachines on his chest. These nanomachines quickly infect Doc Ock's tentacles. With Peter's chest exposed, Doc Ock goes for the finishing blow, but the nanomachines shift from Spider-Man's head to his chest to prevent his death. This reveals Peter's face, which makes Doc Ock realize it's the wrong Peter Parker. In addition, because Doc Ock's tentacles are now covered in nanomachines from Peter's suit, Peter is able to control them. He uses the tentacles to free himself and save the MIT admissions woman. She tells him he's a hero and will do what she can to get him, Ned, and MJ into MIT. After she runs off, the Green Goblin appears, but Strange uses a portal to move Peter and Doc Ock into the undercroft of the Sanctum Sanctorum, where Strange has magical prison cells. Doc Ock is in one cell, while the Lizard is in another. Strange felt an otherworldly presence, which ended up being Lizard, so he captured him and put him in the other cell. Strange explains that while he contained the original spell, it was summoning anyone who knew Peter's identity as Spider-Man, and some of those people got through before it was fully contained. He asks Peter to track them down, and powers a wrist guard with a magical laser that will automatically teleport anyone or anything into one of the cells. He hands this over to Peter and sends him on his way, but not before Ned and MJ join Peter in the Undercroft. Ned uses his laptop to locate who they think is Green Goblin, but turns out to be Electro. This is where Peter gets the black suit, but it's not actually a new suit. Because his suit got stained by the green paint from earlier, he simply turns it inside out, and that's the black suit. Peter heads out and ends up in a battle with Electro. He's losing, but then Sandman suddenly appears and saves Peter from Electro's electricity. Working as a team, they subdue Electro, then Peter uses his magic laser to send them both back to the Undercroft. Peter gets a call from Aunt May and finds out that Norman Osborn came into Aunt May's work to ask for help. She works at FEAST, which stands for Food, Emergency Aid, Shelter, and Training. When Peter shows up, Norman is acting very normal, and we find out that Oscorp doesn't exist in the main timeline of the MCU, and Norman had nowhere else to go. He saw a sign with Spider-Man on it, and that's how he ended up at FEAST. It's here that Aunt May tells Peter that he can do more, and that he should help Norman. Peter takes Osborn back to the Undercroft, but doesn't lock him up. All the villains have a conversation to figure out what's going on, as Strange shows up with what he calls the Machina Digodanis, which is the cube from the trailer. He explains that he can use this cube to send the villains back to their own universe, but the ones who died fighting Spider-Man would die again. Thanks to his Aunt May, Peter tries to do the right thing and grabs the cube as he runs outside. This kicks off a fight between Strange and Spider-Man, in which Strange opens the mirror dimension, but eventually loses the fight due to Peter's mastery of geometry and gets stuck hanging high above the Grand Canyon. Peter takes Dr. Strange's sling ring and goes back to the Undercroft. He hands the sling ring to Ned and gives the villains a choice. They can go with him to be cured so they don't die when they go back to their own universe, or he can send them back now and they'll die. They all decide to go with him, but Peter hands MJ the cube and tells her to hit the button on the cube that will send them all back to their universe if she doesn't hear from him. Peter heads back to Happy's condo with the villains in tow, while MJ and Ned head back to Ned's apartment. Peter finds Stark Tech at Happy's place, the same tech he used in Far From Home to make his new suit. With help from Osborn, who delivers the phrase, "I'm something of a scientist myself," he uses the Stark Tech to create cures for Doc Ock, Electro, and Osborn. He makes Doc Ock a new device that allows him to control his tentacle arms. The device he makes to drain the power from Electro is also working. However, just before he can make an injection that will rid Osborn of the Green Goblin, the Goblin takes control, sets all the villains free, and attacks Peter. This big fight scene ends with Goblin knocking Aunt May over with his glider, then tossing a pumpkin bomb at her. Peter deflects the pumpkin bomb at the last minute, but it's too late. Aunt May dies, but not before delivering her slightly altered version of, "With great power comes great responsibility." Happy shows up just in time to save Peter from the police, but it's too late for May. Back in Ned's apartment, he ends up figuring out how to use Doctor Strange's sling ring to open a portal. When he tries to open a portal to see Peter, it works, and they see Spider-Man on the other side of the portal. They call to him, but when Spider-Man goes through the portal and into Ned's apartment, they quickly realize this is none other than Andrew Garfield. After some fun banter, Ned tries again and gets Toby in normal street clothes. Everyone heads to the roof of the school where they find Tom Holland's Spider-Man. They have a conversation and decide to try Tom's plan to cure everyone again. They head to the school science lab and make the cures again, with some fun triple Spider-Man banter, including asking Toby how he can create webbing without a device. When everything is ready, Tom Holland calls J. Jonah Jameson so he can get on the citywide broadcast and tells the villains he's at the Statue of Liberty. The three Spider-Men prepare for the villains while talking about web shooters and what's happened in the years since we last saw Toby and Andrew suit up. Andrew stopped pulling punches and it got a bit dark, while Toby was able to patch things up with Mary Jane, and it seems as though they're likely married, although this is not confirmed. Once the villains finally show up, the Spider-Men have a hard time working as a team. It's at this point that the other two Spider-Men learn Tom Holland is an Avenger, to which they know nothing about. MJ and Ned take Doctor Strange's cube and use a portal to go back to the science lab, but Ned is unable to close that portal. Lizard eventually finds them, and Tom Holland has to dive through the portal to save everyone. They all end up back at the Statue of Liberty, and they eventually learn to work as a team to administer cures, but not before Doc Ock shows up, turning on the villains and saving Spider-Man, as well as Doctor Strange showing up and scolding Tom Holland. Unfortunately, Goblin uses a pumpkin bomb on Doctor Strange's cube, releasing the previously contained spell, which forces Strange to try to contain it again. With Green Goblin as the only villain left to cure, Tom Holland faces him alone and tries to kill him with his glider. Toby stands between them and stops Tom from killing Goblin, but then Goblin stabs Toby from behind. Toby survives, and Tom forces the cure into Goblin. It works, but now Tom and Strange have to deal with the uncontained spell. They quickly figure out that the only way they can stop this is to cast the original spell again, causing everyone to completely forget who Peter Parker is, without exception. If not, all the people, mostly villains, who know Peter Parker is Spider-Man, will flood into Tom's universe. Tom says his goodbyes to everyone, and as the spell starts to take effect, everyone disappears into a soft light. Tom promises MJ and Ned that he'll make them remember him before he web-slings away. Next we see Tom in street clothes, practicing his lines to try to make MJ remember him. As he enters the coffee shop where she works, Ned passes by and greets MJ. They briefly talk about being accepted into MIT, and Tom decides not to try to make MJ remember him, thinking it would be best if she didn't know Spider-Man, keeping them both much safer in the long run. Tom gets a cheap apartment, kind of similar to the one Tobey had in the original Spider-Man trilogy. We see him drop a box with a GED book in it, confirming that even his teachers forgot him, meaning he couldn't graduate and is now trying to get his GED. He makes a new suit that has much more vibrant colors and swings through New York City just before the credits roll, ending the movie. That wraps up this video, but please remember to check out the rest of our Spider-Man No Way Home coverage linked below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to follow our Instagram for daily Marvel news and rumors. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who loves Marvel and Spider-Man.